Hi. So, the video for today, we're going to look at problems and solution essay question types. Now, I did a video a few weeks back about causes and solutions. The problem and solution is exactly the same structure, which we'll see in a moment. So, I've got a typical structure that outlines it sentence by sentence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, blah, blah, blah. I've got a couple of examples to illustrate the point. So, let's get behind the screen and let's take a look. Okay, let's take a look at this. Now, this is a slightly different format than my usual videos, as you can see me. Usually I don't, I just do a screencast, so we'll see if this is any better or not. Anyway, so I haven't made a problems and solution video. I did a causes and solutions, which is virtually the same. It's virtually identical in the structure, but not an actual problems and solutions. So I thought I would make one, and we'll see how it works out. So as you see, we've got a structure here. I've also got 2 examples to see how that works in practice. I'm not going to go through the criteria or any of that stuff because we've been through that in previous tutorials. We've seen it, we know what the criteria are, and I don't really feel like repeating myself for the 1000th time, so we won't. We'll just go into the structure. Then we'll look at the examples. So problems, causes, solutions. So as you'll see, the problems, causes exactly the same. You can use them for either or. So sentence 1, what do we always do? We paraphrase the question. According to some people, sentence 2, we need to give an outline. Actually say the problem is and the solution is. So examiner knows exactly what the essay is and where it's going, much as I've said in previous tutorials. So outline, very important. We have to briefly answer the 2 questions. This is what I think the problem is. This is what I think a solution to that problem might be. Now, depending on how it's worded, if it says, what do you think is the problem, you have to say so. I think the problem is. If it doesn't say, what do you think, you can write it in a more objective way. This essay will show, or this essay argues that, or this essay believes the problem is. Okay? So if it doesn't say, you don't have to include it. So, paragraph, well anyway, so that's the introduction. Paraphrase, and we need an outline. So if you look at paragraph 2, it's the problem paragraph. Not a surprise there, not too difficult. So, the problem, I believe, the problem of this is this is this. Then you explain it, a result or consequence, and an example. The solution, a possible solutional answer to this problem could be, this will solve the problem by doing this. For example, the number of people who had their problem solved by 80% were this. It's quite straightforward. Conclusion, a summary, prediction, a recommendation. So that's a general idea. Now let's have a look at a couple of examples and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So now, we'll just pause this a second. Okay, so this is the question. Paying with a credit card is a common habit. Credit cards make it easier to buy now and pay later. Okay, so that's the context. That's always you know, the first part of a question is always the context. It sets the scene for what the question is about, right? What are some problems caused by credit card overuse? Question 1 for paragraph 2. What can we do? What can be done about these problems? That's paragraph number 3. Right. So let's take a look. So introduction, you restate the question and you briefly answer, restate the topic. Sentence 2, you briefly say what the essay is going to be talking about. What's the problem? What's the answer? Okay, so many people make purchases with credit cards as it's easy to buy now and pay later, blah, blah, blah. Paraphrase. The main problem with this is it can lead to high levels of personal debt. However, part 2, a possible solution might be for banks to make rigorous checks on customer finances before issuing these cards. So, the problem of credit card overuse is that it can lead to high levels of personal debt. People spending too much on the cards, which they cannot afford. The solution could be for banks to check on their customers before they give them cards. What a strange notion. Okay, but that's basically it. So, paragraph 2. Oh yeah, one other thing. I know it says problems. What can be done about these problems in plural? But as if you can't think of more than one, it's perfectly fine for you to say, well, you know, there's 1 or 2, but I think the main problem is this, and then say why. Okay, and I would always advise to just have 1 problem in any case, because as the criteria says, as we've seen before, you have to present, extend, support your main ideas. So if you've got 2 or more main ideas in a paragraph, you cannot really do that. So I would just go with 1. Okay, so paragraph 2. Having easy and ready access to credit can lead to a person being in debt. Main idea. A simple sentence. Okay. Many banks do not check personal finances before issuing credit cards, and some people have several cards from different banks. So every sentence needs to move the argument, the idea along a little bit further. Right? We want to avoid repetition. We don't want to be saying the same shit 2 or 3 different ways. That doesn't work. Although it's a paraphrase, it doesn't work. We have to have some new shit in every sentence. It's got to move along, sentence to sentence. Okay? So, sentence 3, this ready money can lead to some people spending irresponsibly, as they often pay off 1 card by taking out another from a different bank, thus adding to their debt. So now we need an example. Now, as I've said before 1,000 times, and I'll no doubt say 1,000 times in the future, make something up. Make up an example. The more detailed, precise, the better it will be. Right? For example, many people have more than 1 credit card and they get into lots of debt. Or a survey by the Bank of England in 2015 showed that out of 10,000 bank customers, over 75% admitted to having 2 or more credit cards and having personal debts of several thousand. Now, it should be obvious which of the 2 examples is a better one. So, make something up if you need to do so. Okay. Now, paragraph 3, what's the answer? The solution? Well, so to solve this problem, banks should have a joint database of all customers to show who has applied for the card, and they should also set a strict limit on the amount of credit for each person. Move it on. This sharing of information will stop people having multiple cards which they cannot afford. Now an example. For example, in some countries, China, Russia and Turkey, strict checks are made on citizens' finances with a minimum amount of money needed in an account before the card could be issued, and only 1 card per citizen is authorised. Now, I've got no idea if that's true or not, but it sounds plausible. That's all that matters. Nobody's going to go into examiner's not going to go into his, oh, let's go into Google. Is this true? No, he, she isn't, because they don't care. It's not important. So, as long as it's plausible, that's it. So, you can see then how that basically works. Every sentence has to move the idea along, bum, 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 and it seems perfectly plausible. The only thing wrong with making up examples, and I don't want to be too rude, is if they're really fucking stupid. If you make up some example and it's obviously ridiculous, then the examiner might just notice. But if it's plausible, you'll be fine. So, in conclusion, although easy credit is blamed for rising debt levels, this is a relatively easy problem to solve if stricter banking regulations were enforced. If all banks shared customer data and agreed to cooperate with each other when issuing credit cards, this might be a suitable solution to this problem. So, that's not too bad. 299 words, I don't know, it's about 13 sentences. That's it, that's all you basically need. Now, the coherence part, you're basically saying the same thing 3 different times. Introduction, paragraph 2, 3, conclusion. So, in the conclusion, you restate, you more or less, you paraphrase the introduction. That's basically it. So you're saying the same thing twice. And your main idea, 1, high levels of debt, is here. And also here. The main idea 2, rigorous checks, sharing customer data, joint database, strict kind of checks. So the cohesion part's good because everything links in. There's an interconnection. You can see how this connects to this, connects to this, connects to that. Okay, so that's just one example. Let's take a look at a second to illustrate this point a little further. So let's take a look at the second example now. Let me make this in italics. Okay, that's better. So the same structure, exactly the same. I'll show you it again. I'll put all this stuff onto the blog so you can copy and paste it, write it down, use it. Well, this is it. It's pretty straightforward. You don't have to stick to it exactly, but the main idea is the same. Paraphrase the question, give an outline sentence in the introduction. In your paragraphs, you clearly state what's the problem, what's the solution, then you explain it. Every sentence needs to move the idea along, a progression, a logical progression, and a specific example. Every essay says, write to 50 words, give reasons and examples. So that's what you have to do. So that's the structure. Let's take a look at the second example then. Did I do this one? Oh, sorry, that's a slightly different one. That's for another video that's coming in a moment or two. So this is the second example, right? So more and more people are reading electronically these days. What problems might this cause? How might these problems be resolved? Okay, so you restate the topic. As technology develops, more people are choosing to read e-books and online news than traditional paper versions. Okay, what's the problem? Well, the main problem of this trend is that it will inevitably put people out of work. Well, a possible solution might be to retrain sections of the workforce into e-publishing. Now, this was a slightly difficult one because I couldn't really think of any kind of problems, because if more people are reading on their phones and shit as they do, obviously it's good because they're not cutting down trees, which contributes to greenhouse kind of gases, which contributes to global warming, which contributes to rising sea levels, etc. So reading electronically, I can't really see there's any problems. I mean, maybe there might be some problems with people's eyesight, but anyway, so I had to think of something. Now, as I mentioned to people every single day, what is it that I mention every single day? Oh yeah. Your ideas don't have to be strikingly original. They just don't. They don't have to be good, solid, original ideas. They don't have to be interesting. It can be boring, the most boring shit you've ever read, but that's not what the criteria is. Boring is not assessed. There's no entertainment value. You don't get marks for being entertaining. Okay, so I just had to think of something. I thought, well, what's a possible problem? All the print workers, well, they're basically not printing because nobody's buying their paper shit, so they might be out of work. So this is why we had this one. So that's the introduction then. Let's take a look. Paragraph 2 is what's the problem? We need to expand it. So, although reading via smartphone, laptop and tablet might be good news to the environment, it's not so good for the print workers. Now we need to explain it. That is to say, the many thousands of people who work in printing paper books are surplus to requirements. Because if everybody's reading on the phone, they're not buying books or paper. So, as a consequence, they will lose their jobs. Boo-hoo. A recent survey by the National Union of Print Workers showed that an estimated 60% of print jobs will expect it to go over the next 5 years based on current trends. So, we've got a logical set of ideas there. Reading on a phone's not so good for the people that actually have to print things in paper because they'll lose their jobs. A recent survey shows that this is true. So, what's the answer? How can this problem be resolved? Well, let's take a look. So, paragraph number 3. As it is impossible to put technology back in the bottle, as it were, one solution to offset these job losses and the harm they would cause the economy would be to retrain print workers in the e-publishing field. Let me just make that. There we go. In the electronic publishing field, there are many possibilities for retraining, such as graphic design, proofreading, coding, etc. I don't know. All of which would keep people in employment in the same general area. Okay. For example, the publishing house Cambridge University Press recently announced it planned to create 500 new jobs via retraining in its Cambridge office for electronic printing. Sounds plausible, I suppose. I mean, it's not true, but that doesn't matter. Although only one example, it shows the potential for jobs if every traditional publishing house followed suit. So, there we go. One solution to fix the job losses, retrain the print workers in the same area, but in graphics, proofreading, coding, so they can still work in the publishing field, but just not in paper. Okay. Conclusion. In conclusion, as your reading set to continue into the foreseeable future, which it obviously is, this could well cause redundancies in the printing industry unless some retraining of print workers begins. If responsible employers had the foresight to initiate retraining in the workplace, this situation might be resolved. 295 words. So, again, that's not bad, You've got restatement of the question, then you've got outline sentence, your main ideas, so your introduction's basically the same as your conclusion. Essentially, you're saying the same thing, but in paraphrase, of course, and then the cohesive part, put people out of work, that is to say, surplus to requirements or lose the jobs. So the main idea, sentence 2, the main idea, paragraph 3, retrain, retraining, and then at the end you say the same thing. So that's quite quite straightforward, I think. So I'll put these 2 examples onto the blog, and you can copy them out. You can see the structure and use the examples. Now, I don't know if I'm going to bother using this dual format in future. I don't really know. This is an experiment. I don't usually do this. I used to just do a screen shot for the whole video. Then recently I've started, as you see with my camera in the background, I started recording an introduction for today's lesson. But I thought I would try this, having a dual kind of a screen. I don't know, we'll see. If you like it, I'll carry on. If you don't, I'll just do a screencast. So, anyway, that's enough for now. If you've got any questions, any essay questions you want me to write about, you can get in touch. I'll give you my email, kevin@prepareielts.com. The website's surprisingly called prepareielts.com too, so you can take a look at the blog. Great, I'll see you later. Okay.